With its 5-story steel frame and masonry infill exterior wall, the digester building is the most prominent of the remaining brick structures at the former pulp mill site along Bellingham's waterfront. Constructed in 1937, it represents the initial phase of mill buildings completed for the Puget Sound Pulp and Timber Company.
For the local community, it's associated with Georgia Pacific. That was a major employer here in Bellingham. Many community residents worked there until it closed totally in 2005. Many of their ancestors worked in the series of pulp mills that were on the site before Georgia Pacific.
The Port of Bellingham purchased the site several years ago for redevelopment purposes. While collectively the industrial complex was deemed eligible as a National Register Historic District, significant buildings on site have been demolished.
This property has been under redevelopment planning for about 10 years now. In 2004, there were 50 buildings on the site. Not all were historic by the 50-year rule, but those buildings have gradually been destroyed. Last year, 3 more buildings were taken down. At this point, there are only 5 buildings remaining, 4 buildings from the pulp mill and the agricultural granary.
The port, with the City of Bellingham as a project partner, continues to move forward with its waterfront development plans.
This is an opportunity for the city and the port to do something really significant in adaptive reuse. These buildings could form a discrete district. The 4 mill buildings are close together in proximity. They are made of similar materials, and they tell a good portion of the story of how pulp was made. I'd like to see the port take the character of the site and work with design standards that would cultivate the character of the brick mill buildings. And there's plenty of room on the site. It's 237 acres. There's plenty of room for lead buildings and new buildings, but it would be wonderful if they could pick up on the character that is suggested by the original buildings.
The digester building remains individually eligible for listing in the National Register and thus eligible for historic preservation tax credits. Yet a study commissioned by the port recommends demolition of the structure, citing its reuse would be unlikely to deliver an adequate return on investment.
There is so little left of Washington State's history of resource exploitation in the timber industry. This is one of the last remaining sites in Washington State to tell a story of regional significance. People in Bellingham appreciate the historical character of our city. People in Bellingham are excited about where they live. We feel like our city has a real distinct character, and this site, which is part of local history, the story of entrepreneurs, the story of workers, the story of laborers and of wealth production, could contribute to the narrative of the city in a significant way if these buildings are adaptively reused and preserved.